Every day, millions of people start their mornings with a Starbucks coffee. To many, it's more than just a drink, it's a ritual, a lifestyle, a global phenomenon. But behind the perfectly crafted lattes and inviting coffee shop ambience lies a much darker story, one of relentless ambition, ruthless expansion, and a man who stopped at nothing to build an empire. Howard Schultz is often celebrated as the visionary behind Starbucks, the man who took a small coffee bean retailer and turned it into a global powerhouse. His name is synonymous with innovation and success, but as with many tales of corporate triumph, there's a side to this story that isn't as widely discussed, a side filled with controversy, ethical questions, and the true cost of global domination. This is the story of how Starbucks conquered the world, a story of power, profit, and the shadow it cast on communities, workers, and competitors. Welcome to the dark reality of Howard Schultz and Starbucks global domination.
To understand the man behind Starbucks, we must first go back to Brooklyn in the 1950s. Howard Schultz was born on July 19, 1953, in a working-class neighborhood known for its grit and resilience. His family lived in the Bayview housing projects, a place that shaped Schultz's early understanding of hardship and ambition. Howard's father, Fred Schultz, worked as a truck driver, often taking on physically demanding jobs that paid little and offered no security. Howard would later recount how his father suffered an injury on the job and was left without health insurance or workers' compensation. That moment left an indelible mark on the young Schultz, a realization of how unforgiving the world could be to those at the bottom. Despite the struggles, Schultz's determination to escape poverty was unwavering. He excelled in sports, earning a football scholarship to Northern Michigan University. But once there, life was no easier. Schultz worked multiple part-time jobs to make ends meet, from bartending to selling blood. Even then, his drive to succeed stood out. After college, Schultz took his first steps into the corporate world, landing a sales job at Xerox. But it wasn't until he joined a Swedish kitchenware company, Hammarplast, that his career took a pivotal turn. As director of sales, Schultz noticed a small Seattle-based coffee company purchasing an unusually high volume of drip coffee makers. That company, Starbucks. In 1981, Schultz visited the original Starbucks store and was captivated by their passion for coffee. At the time, Starbucks was a niche operation, selling high-quality coffee beans to a loyal but small customer base. But Schultz saw something the founders didn't, a much bigger vision. He believed Starbucks could not just sell coffee beans but create an entirely new coffee culture in America. Schultz joined Starbucks as their director of marketing in 1982, eager to bring his vision to life. But his ideas for expansion clashed with the original founders, who preferred to keep Starbucks small and focused. Frustrated but undeterred, Schultz made a bold move. He left Starbucks in 1985 to start his own coffee company, Il Giornale, inspired by the espresso bars he had seen in Italy. Il Giornale was Schultz's proving ground. It was here that he tested his concept of a coffeehouse experience, inviting spaces where people could gather, work, and unwind. The success of Il Giornale caught the attention of investors, and soon Schultz was ready to make his next move. In 1987, Schultz returned to Starbucks, but this time as its owner. He purchased the company for $3.8 million, merging it with Il Giornale and setting the stage for Starbucks' transformation into a global empire. It was the beginning of a meteoric rise, driven by Schultz's relentless ambition and vision.
When Howard Schultz took over Starbucks in 1987, it had just 6 stores, all located in Seattle. The company sold premium coffee beans and equipment, but Schultz had a much grander vision, a vision inspired by the espresso bars he had experienced in Milan, Italy. These weren't just places to grab coffee, they were social hubs, filled with energy, conversation, and community. Schultz wanted to bring this culture to America, and Starbucks was his vehicle to do so, but executing this vision required capital and lots of it. Schultz began pitching his idea to investors, painting a picture of Starbucks as more than just a coffee shop. He described it as a third place, a space between home and work where people could connect, relax, and enjoy premium coffee. His enthusiasm was infectious, and he successfully raised $25 million to fund Starbucks' expansion. Under Schultz's leadership, Starbucks expanded aggressively, moving beyond Seattle to major cities across the United States. By the early 1990s, the company was opening a new store every workday. Schultz focused on creating a consistent customer experience, with every store designed to exude warmth and familiarity. From the soothing music to the earthy tones of the decor, every detail was meticulously crafted to make Starbucks feel like home. Schultz also revolutionized how Americans viewed coffee. Before Starbucks, coffee was often seen as a cheap, utilitarian beverage. Schultz changed that narrative, elevating coffee to an experience worth paying a premium for. A $3 latte became a symbol of sophistication, a small luxury that millions of people were willing to indulge in daily. In 1992, Starbucks went public, marking a major milestone in its journey. The IPO raised $25 million, and the company's stock soared by 70% on its first day of trading. Suddenly, Starbucks had the financial muscle to accelerate its expansion even further. With its newfound resources, Starbucks began planting its green siren logo across the globe. The company opened its first international store in Tokyo in 1996, followed by locations in Europe, the Middle East, and beyond. By the early 2000s, Starbucks was no longer just a coffee chain, it was a global icon, synonymous with modern urban culture. Starbucks wasn't just selling coffee, it was selling a brand, a lifestyle, and a sense of identity. Schultz understood the power of branding better than most. He positioned Starbucks as an aspirational product, using sleek marketing campaigns and high-profile endorsements to solidify its image. The introduction of the Starbucks Rewards program in 2008 further cemented customer loyalty. By incentivizing repeat visits with free drinks and exclusive perks, Starbucks created a built-in fan base that kept coming back, cup after cup. But the rapid growth wasn't without its challenges. As Starbucks expanded, it faced criticism for overcrowded stores, declining quality, and accusations of over-commercialization. Schultz himself admitted that the brand risked losing its soul as it scaled up. In response, Schultz doubled down on innovation. The company introduced upscale reserve stores and new menu items to appeal to a broader audience. It was a calculated move to maintain Starbucks' premium image while catering to changing consumer taste. But as Starbucks grew, so did its shadow. Independent coffee shops struggled to compete. Baristas voiced concerns about wages and working conditions, and the company's rapid expansion raised questions about its true impact on communities and workers alike. Behind the scenes, cracks were beginning to form in the carefully curated image of Starbucks as an ethical, community-driven company. As Starbucks grew into a global empire, its expansion came at a cost, one that wasn't always visible in the glossy marketing campaigns or the polished stores. Behind the scenes, the company's aggressive growth strategies left a trail of controversy, raising questions about its true impact on communities, competitors, and even its own employees. For many small, local coffee shops, competing with Starbucks was like going up against a corporate giant with limitless resources. Schultz's vision of a Starbucks in every corner wasn't just about accessibility, it was about market dominance. In some cases, Starbucks would open stores close to thriving independent cafés, offering lower prices and unbeatable brand recognition until the competition was forced to shut down. For independent shop owners, it wasn't just business, it was personal. Many saw their livelihoods disappear as Starbucks swept into their neighborhoods, bringing with it a homogenized coffee culture that left little room for local flair. While Starbucks marketed its coffee as ethically sourced and premium quality, the reality for many coffee farmers was far from fair. Despite programs like CAFE practices, aimed at promoting sustainable farming and fair wages, reports emerged of farmers struggling to make ends meet. For many, the premium prices customers paid for Starbucks lattes never trickled down to the people who grew the beans. Critics accused Starbucks of using sustainability as a marketing tool, while the economic realities for farmers remained dire. The company's reliance on complex supply chains and a focus on profit margins often overshadowed its claims of ethical responsibility. Inside Starbucks stores, employees known as partners were marketed as the heart of the company. Schultz often spoke about providing healthcare benefits and stock options to his workers, positioning Starbucks as an ethical employer. But beneath the surface, a different story was unfolding. Baristas began speaking out about low wages, unpredictable schedules, and high-pressure environments. Despite Starbucks' image as a progressive employer, many workers felt undervalued and overworked. Efforts to unionize were met with strong resistance from the company, with allegations of intimidation and retaliation surfacing in multiple locations. In public, Schultz maintained that Starbucks didn't need unions because the company already cared for its workers. But internally, the company fought hard to prevent unionization, using aggressive tactics that drew criticism from labor rights organizations. Starbucks' rapid expansion also came with significant environmental consequences. The company produced billions of single-use cups annually, many of which ended up in landfills. Despite pledges to reduce waste and invest in recyclable materials, progress was slow, and the environmental cost of Starbucks' convenience culture continued to grow. Even in the coffee-growing regions, the push for higher yields led to deforestation and overfarming, further straining the ecosystems that supported the industry. Starbucks' efforts to address these issues were often criticized as too little, too late. Starbucks' image as an ethical, community-driven brand was carefully cultivated, but the reality behind the scenes told a more complicated story. Schultz's vision of global domination brought with it a host of ethical dilemmas, many of which remain unresolved to this day. As Starbucks continued to grow, so did the questions about what its success truly represented. Was it the story of a visionary leader bringing coffee culture to the world? Or was it a cautionary tale about the cost of unchecked corporate ambition?
Starbucks' rise to global dominance has reshaped coffee culture, but it has also come with significant costs that often go unnoticed. Beneath the polished veneer of community building and ethical sourcing lies a deeper reality, a story of displaced communities, exploited labor, and environmental degradation. For many local coffee shops, Starbucks represented an existential threat. Its aggressive expansion strategy, often placing multiple stores in close proximity to independent cafés, created an uneven playing field. While customers flocked to Starbucks for its consistent quality and familiarity, small businesses struggled to compete, often shutting their doors for good. The impact extends beyond local economies. Coffee farmers, the backbone of Starbucks' supply chain, often receive wages that fail to reflect the brand's premium pricing. While Starbucks touts initiatives like CAAF practices to ensure ethical sourcing, critics argue that the program does not address the systemic inequities faced by farmers. The environmental cost is equally troubling. Despite its efforts to promote sustainability, Starbucks generates billions of single-use cups annually, with only a fraction being recycled. Pledges to address this issue have been slow to yield substantial results, leaving a significant carbon footprint in their wake. Starbucks is more than a coffee company, it's a corporate juggernaut that exemplifies the challenges of balancing profit with purpose.
Starbucks' story is one of unparalleled ambition and undeniable influence. It transformed how the world consumes coffee, turning an everyday beverage into a global cultural phenomenon. Yet, this success came at a price of homogenized coffee culture, strained communities, and questions about its social and environmental impact. As Starbucks continues to grow, it forces us to confront the complexities of corporate dominance. Is it a beacon of innovation and convenience? Or a cautionary tale of unchecked ambition? Ultimately, Starbucks reflects the world we live in, one where convenience and profit often come at the expense of individuality and fairness. If you've enjoyed this deep dive into the reality behind Starbucks' success, make sure to subscribe to our channel for more thought-provoking stories about the people, companies, and ideas shaping our world. Hit the bell icon to stay updated because the next story might just change how you see the world.